Next up, I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Marcelle Lee. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Marcelle now for probably 6 or 7 years at this point. And today, Marcelle is going to provide a little demonstration of a fancy, nice tool called CyberChef. And as many of you know, the US Cyber Games likes to bring all different kinds of folks with different backgrounds, levels of experience into the program. We have our beginners game room and the competitive CTF. So some of you may be brand new. This session is truly for, as CyberChef will likely be found to be quite helpful as you navigate some of the challenges in our upcoming Capture the Flags. So with that, I would like to welcome Miss Marcelle Lee. Marcelle, whenever you're ready.
The topic today is Let's Get Cooking with CyberChef. And if you haven't come across CyberChef, I will tell you that it is the most fabulous tool for cyber competitions. It's the most fabulous tool for like many things, actually. And in my role as a security researcher, I actually use it all the time. Let me dismiss that. Okay, so I have a short amount of time, so I'm going to go through as much as I possibly can. It's going to be mostly demos, and I will share a link in the chat in the conference platform where you all can download materials for this, including the slides and whatnot. But anyway, so hey, I'm Marcelle, and I am a principal InfoSec engineer at Equinix, which is the world's largest data center company that you probably never heard of. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland. I'm on the board of directors at CyberJutsu and a diversity advocate. Remember that? Remember what I'm an advocate of. You'll need that later. Anyway, and I'm like Marcelle Lee on all the things. So I just want to put a quick plug in for CyberJutsu Con, which is happening June 21st, 22nd. It's at the National Spaceball Stadium in DC, but it is also hybrid, so accessible really to anybody. Would love to see you there. Just Google CyberJutsu and you will find it, but I'll also put a link in the chat later. So what is CyberChef? So they call themselves Swiss Army Knife, and I think that's actually a pretty fair assessment, to be honest. And it was developed by GCHQ, and GCHQ, at least for folks in the US, this will be relatable. It's basically the UK version of NSA. So you can run it locally, you can run it on the website. Either way, the operations are performed client-side either way. So you don't really have to worry about like putting sensitive information in there because it really doesn't go anywhere unless you're making like an HTTP request or a DNS request or something like that. And you'll see more about that shortly. Okay, this link I will give you later. So this is the basic layout of CyberChef. So you have your operations pane on the left side, your recipe pane in the middle, and then input and output. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to put things in the input pane, you're going to select an operation or a recipe, and then you will get some results in the output pane. And it's all very chef themed, and I'm not going to lie, I do have a chef hat from when I've done this presentation in the past, but I could not find it today, so I apologize for my lack of accoutrements. Anyway, so the operations part, there's a zillion different things in here. Like all I can say is explore it on your own. There's no way I could even start to scratch the surface of all the things. But basically, these are like the ingredients for your recipes. And then your recipe is when you're combining these operations. So what you see here is I have a recipe there that I'm doing a from base 64 operation to binary operation, reverse operation, and raw deflate operation. And those were all together in one recipe. Although I can't even think what what I was maybe going to accomplish. I probably just put random things in there. But anyway, so that's the recipe idea. And then the layout here, you can see it's pretty straightforward. You can save a recipe, load a recipe, delete a recipe. On the input side, this is pretty self-explanatory. You don't need me to read you like all these things, obviously. One of the things that I discovered when I took a training for CyberChef that I never noticed was that plus sign in the input side means you can have numerous windows open at the same time. And you'll see me do this shortly when we get to like the demo part of this. And then there's something called magic in CyberChef. If it wasn't already cool enough, now we get some magic. So sometimes CyberChef will be like, I think you're trying to do this operation. And it's often right, but not always. And we'll see that too. Okay, so let's get cooking. So this is where I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between two different screens, but there's so many different things that you can do. Now, anybody who's done some cyber competitions may recognize this. But if you didn't, you could just be like, Google, like, it's a string of characters that ends with 2 equal signs. What could it be? And it's going to be base 64. So a type of encoding, not encryption. So here we go. I've already pre-populated this, and I think if I make this bigger, and I need to update this. Don't just pretend you never saw that I haven't updated my browser yet. Let me get a little bigger there. There we go. So what I want to do here on the operation side is I'm going to look for base 64, and I can select here from base 64. And I can either double click or just drag it over. Of course, this is not cooperating right now. Number wang is something else I just learned about from the previous speaker, and I love it. So what CyberChef has done here is taken that base 64 encoded string and given us the output down here. But the magic piece that I neglected to mention is if I kind of hover over that little magic wandy thing, it's telling me like from base 64 will produce this thing. So it's basically giving you like a clue about what you might be looking for. All right, so I think actually I'm just going to stay over here in CyberChef. So another example is analyzing a hash. So you'll often come across a hash in a cyber competition and you're like, okay, what is this, MD5? Is it SHA-256? Is it something else entirely? I don't know. But this is a function that you can do in CyberChef. So we can say analyze hash, and it's giving us this output that based on the length, this hash could have been generated by one of the following functions. So in this case, it is SHA-256. It is not Haval-256 or Panama or SNFRU, whatever that might be. But yeah, so then you at least know if you're going to start trying to crack it or whatever, you're going to want to put in what kind of hash it is to speed things up, right? All right, so let's go over to some encryption. So here we have, and I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit bigger because it still seems a bit small. There we go. So we have an encrypted string here, and we don't necessarily know what kind of encryption it is. And I will say, CyberChef is not fabulous for like guessing the encryption. Like a site like Decode or something like that is really good for that. But I know that it's a Vignere cipher, which is a very popular one. And as I mentioned before in my little intro part, I'm like, what is Marcelle an advocate of? It is diversity. And I actually have in my social media, like usually I'll make people go to my LinkedIn and find where I say the key is diversity. So let's put in diversity as our key. Oops. Oh, let's get rid of the hash one. There we go. And this decodes to or decrypts to Women's Society of Cyberjutsu. And then a quick mention here. So if you don't want to like run whatever operations in there, you can pause it. You can also just double click to get rid of it. And you can also do breakpoints. So that's kind of a cool thing too. All right, so let's see. Here's another one. And when you see the punctuation like this looks very much like, okay, I can see where this might be like actual words. Maybe it's a substitution cipher. Substitution ciphers are very popular in cyber competitions. So let's do a little brute forcing of this one because it's not always rot 13. I should put that on my gravestone. Not always rot 13. But anyway, so there is a brute force rot 13. So let's give that a whirl. And basically what it does is it tries every possible combination. So as we scroll through here, it's all gobbledygook until you get to like this one, right? Cyber competitions are fun. So we've rotated 9 times. This actually means that it is rot 17 because 26 minus 9, 17. So there you go. There's that. And encoding, more encoding. You all probably know this is binary, right? But let's get a decode here. And one of the things I love about CyberChef is that it is such a one-stop shop, right? You can do so many things just from this one platform. All right, so there you go, down the rabbit hole. All right, let's move on to something else. So this one is an image, and as you know, if you've done cyber competitions, there's always like image files. You've got to figure out maybe some of the EXIF data, which is the metadata about the image file. And so here, the magic is giving us like render image will produce blah, blah, blah. And let's do that just for grins and giggles. It's not what we're looking for, but it basically is going to show us what this image looks like. And there's a reason it's called dolls because, you know, dolls. I think I've called it creepy dolls in some instances, but that's not actually what we want to do here. What we want to do is extract the EXIF data. So let's perform that operation. Okay, so typically in this, like when I use this as a challenge or similar ones, I would ask the participants in the CTF to identify like these kind of things. So what's the description of the image? What's the make? What's the model of the camera? Obviously, this is all fake. I just made that up using EXIF tool to add the EXIF data. And there's also a lat long in here, so you could figure out where I actually took this photograph, if you felt so inclined. All right, the last one, the coup de grace. So as a security researcher, or in many other fields in cybersecurity, you'll come across potentially malicious scripts. I will say if you come across a PowerShell script that is encoded in base 64, chances of it being malicious are pretty strong. So anyway, being able to decipher this is huge. And this is where I'm going to show you a recipe. So let me load a recipe, not IP lookup, but encoded and compressed PowerShell script. We're going to load that. And there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to like pause the various pieces so you can see what's happening behind the scenes. Oops, pause. Oops, let's just do it this way. Pause doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. Okay, so the very first thing I did here in this recipe is I did a regular expression extraction, basically looking for base 64 encoded data. And that's what this regex is for right here, right? Various other things you can, select here, but this is what we're looking for. So that basically, I keep saying basically when we're talking about base 64, so base. But anyway, you have this whole string here, which is the base 64 extracted from this, basically this whole script. All right, so let's do the next part, which is extracting from base 64 or converting it from base 64, but it still looks wonky. But you'll see up here, this is compressed. So we see in this, there's an operation that we're going to need, which is raw inflate. So let's do that. And now we're looking at something here, right? We're basically seeing what's happening with this script. And then the last piece, like, I want to know what's going on with this script. I suspect it's something to do with reaching out to a C2. So I'm going to ask CyberChef to extract any IP addresses. Voila, we have an IP address. And then the very last piece of this, because we are good researchers and we never give anybody like fanged indicators, we want to defang. And if you're not familiar with the terminology defang, it essentially just means make a link or an IP or whatever not clickable. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Let me just check the chat to see where I am, but I think I'm probably right up around time. Yes, I think I am right up around time. So yeah, that's it for CyberChef, but I encourage you all to give it a try. I think you'll love it. And I'll be around in the platform if anybody has any questions. So thank you.